Action. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are joined on the platform today by Mr. Jorge Orduno, who is the director of first-year experience here at Harry S. Truman College, one of the 7 city colleges in the city of Chicago. How you doing today?
I'm good, Casalin. Thanks for bringing me in.
That's what's up, man. I'm excited. I know you and I, we've worked and then we've not worked and then but one of the things that I'm most impressed about is as I watch you move through the space, is your courage, is your ability and sometimes what I can see, what can be conceived as a lack of leadership. You just kind of going out and getting it done. You're finding out ways to kind of get it done and be creative in the space. And I think that's so important. What we'll talk about today is just your upbringing. What brought you about this profession, and just have some fun with it, all right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
Excellent. So the first question, man, is where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I immigrated from Mexico. So I grew up in Mexico, immigrated here at the age of 2 or 3. So I came here pretty young. I really don't have many childhood memories when I was in Mexico. So I really wouldn't be able to tell you much about that. Most of my life that I've known of that I can remember is living here in Chicago. So, been here for, most of my life. Moved from places to places, in this diverse city that we have. Grew up in Logan Square, Humboldt Park, and then, as gentrification happened, right, when families had to move out of some of these areas. So, moving out to other areas that were predominantly Hispanic. So, we move in packs, right? Like when we look at our communities, we like to move in packs. We like to live amongst one another. And live in community. So, just finding that community once again was all about life. So continuously moving, finding that community you can live within, and that you felt comfortable living with.
Excellent. Hey, man. So with that, right, it sounds really harmonious, right? Where some may look at it like, wow, all that moving. No, one of the things I hear you very clear about, we move with each other. We move in packs, right? We stay around and within our culture. If you could identify an influence as you moved around and grew up, well, who were some of your bigger influences?
Yeah, I think, just growing up, like you always look up to those professionals that's around you. Oftentimes that might be a family member, the community itself. You have community leaders. When you're in school, you get some of those administrators that just pick you up under their wing, and kind of show you the ropes sometimes. So for me, it was valuable that there was people that looked like me in those positions of leadership, and that, I was able to look up to them and say, hey, that person is doing some great, amazing work, right? They're well connected with the community. They're well respected, they're well liked among, their peers, the community that surrounds them. So I really want to aspire to be something just like that, right? Like I don't want to be a copycat, but I want to make sure that I follow those footsteps and really show those leadership skills just like they did, right? Like helping one another, providing services for that community in one way, shape, or form.
Oh, that's excellent. And let me tell you, man, my motto is, and I you can copycat just as long as you copy the right cat. And just as I watch you, right, it just appears as though whoever those influences were, they set a really quality example. If I think back, was I just straight watching someone? No, but it was that consistent, the way they showed up, right? The way that they interacted with me. And I can imagine that some of those same behaviors took place. So what high school did you go to?
Yeah, so I attended Steinmetz High School
wow.
in the West Side. Yeah. So ever since I've been living around the neighborhood, very close by it. I'm very close to, every stepping stone I've had in life. I'm very close to those institutions. So I'm close to my high school. I go back there, teach, coach volleyball as an assistant volleyball coach there. I continuously help our men of color there as well. And try to, put together events for the community to make sure that, they know that they can thrive. Oftentimes, our young, students kind of don't have that mindset of like, I can thrive and move out of this life, right? And be something bigger.
That's right.
So that's something that I try to push to them, whether it's through sports, like I find a method for them to just see themselves thriving in something. Like you can be good at something. Maybe academics, you're not doing so well, but you can be good at something, right? And like, let's figure out what is that passion, that one thing that makes you you. So yeah, that is where I attended high school. Then I moved on to college. I went to Dominican University, so double alum there. I did my undergrad studies there and my master's degree at Dominican. I was employed at Dominican, so you can say, that. And again, it's that sense of connection, right? Like once you start building those connections with people, networking, again, peers and faculty, staff that I just connected with, they were not just my professor, right? Like they were not just the director of this department. They became a friend, right? And that's the thing that I try to emphasize with our students, that you wanna move to that friend phase with some of these staff members, with your faculty, because eventually there's opportunities that are going to open up down the road. You want to take them.
That's what's up. That likability factor, one of the most unused factors. It's like people don't feel like they should be liked. I mean, I like being liked. I ain't gonna compromise myself, but I like being liked. So could you pinpoint, so let me ask this. Throughout, now you mentioned Stymens, you've mentioned your community, you've mentioned Stymens, you've mentioned Dominican, your work history. On can you count the number of instructors that, and I'm not talking about gym teachers or disciplinarians, I'm talking about instruction in the classroom. Can you count the number of Black and brown males that you saw? Were you exposed to a number of Black and brown males through your educational journey?
So I would really say that, probably just with this one hand, I can count how many men of color I came across in education, and that goes way back, as a young kid. I think I had like an elementary school teacher that I just created a close bond. And sometimes like we didn't have a car to get me to school, and I had to walk there. So he would sometimes drive by around our neighborhood and pick me up and take me to school. And it was like one of those things, like I was just amazed. Like he looked after his students beyond the classroom. So that was like one of the qualities.
Was he Black or brown?
Yeah, he was brown, right? He was a man of color. So that's the thing, right? Like I looked up to him, and he was one of my I think he was my first grade teacher.
Wow.
And then, from there on, it was like throughout the years, like there was no other male of color until I got to college. And even there in that space, it's very difficult to find men of color in that space too. So I probably came across another 2 or 3 and maybe connected to another 2, but as a professional, right? Like I didn't have that opportunity to sit down and be in their classrooms and learn from their experiences. But it's very difficult to see men of color. I love that question, because one of the things that I just did is I just accepted an adjunct position, to teach. And that's the thing, right? One of the posts I posted on LinkedIn was, there's about 4% of our men of color are within higher education, right? So I want to be that change. I want to change that narrative. I want to show these young students like, hey, you can be, a professor. You can teach as well. You can be in education. So you can do it. Let's do it. Let's find a way for you get there, right? So I've been blessed with that opportunity of giving back and being able to sit in the classroom again and teach something to our students, but also be a man of color in front of them.
In front of that's huge. First of all, congratulations. We needed your ability to tell the story about the first grade alone leads me into this next question, and we'll end up here in a sec. What made you persist, right? Because I can imagine it hasn't been easy as you've gone on this journey through Steinmetz and through Dominican. First of all, not seeing very many of us. You don't have very many examples. What made you persist, George?
Yeah, as I said, I think I've been very blessed in terms of like at every stage or milestone that I traveled through, right? Whether it was elementary, high school, or college, there's always been somebody that I have stumbled upon on that has been that driving force, who has pushed me over the edge and said, hey, go for this, right? In elementary school, I had that one teacher that just looked after me, and I was like, hey, like I gotta really do good in school, right? And then when I got to high school, people were telling me, hey, you're smart, you can go to any college. Unfortunately, because of your immigration status, you cannot make it a college. There's nothing we can do. And it was like me taking that one chance, right? Like that one person that just said, hey, just give it a shot. And I did. I took a chance one day. After that, like I think I heard from a scholarship like 6 months later. And that kind of was like a driving force. Like, hey, if I could do this, I know I can push even further. I can continue on that path of achieving that goal that I have in mind. And then in college, same thing. I came across, again, a male figure that took me under his wing, and said like, no, like I'm going to ensure that you're going to, graduate from college. He knew like, hey, I don't think I'm going to make it through the first year. And he was like, nope, like, let's make it happen. So he offered me various opportunities. I got engaged a lot and networked with everybody, both on campus, off campus. And that it's just that driving force. You got to find that person who is going to see the positive in the negative, right? And just continue pushing you forward.
Man, that's some good stuff. Are you first generation, George?
Yes, I am. Yeah, first in my family to graduate from college, get a master's degree,
Wow.
future doctorate, but yeah, and that's the thing, paving the way for the rest of my family members. My brother just graduated from college, which is with his bachelor's. My sister is in college, her freshman year right now. So it's like, seeing that momentum occur, right? That
Wow.
they look up to somebody and they can say, hey, if he did it under the circumstances that he was in, I can do it too.
I can do it. That's huge, because when we think about, sometimes I think about the work that we do, and you don't slow down enough to really understand the impact that you're having. So to be able to just stand back sometime and say, hey, as a result of me pushing forward, residually, here's what I see happening, not only within my household, but who else are you affecting without even really knowing? And who else are you, as you go back into your community, what other little kids are really looking up? So that's huge. We'll end here, George. And I appreciate you being real impromptu and jumping on this call. It does a couple of things. Yeah, it helps me with my paper, but I think just in the work that we've done and in the work that we're going to do, getting this understanding, right, and not just passing by each other and having those brief, it puts a lot of things in context, right? And so you really understand, when you begin to understand why we do the work, that's important. And so we'll end there. Why education? Why? So often we tell our what, right? And we'll tell how we do it, but rarely do we get a chance to share our why. Here's your opportunity, George, to just tell us why. Why are you a man of color in education?
Yeah, like I said, right? Like I think we don't have a lot of men in this field. Um, Nevertheless, men of color in leadership positions, right? I think that is another area where oftentimes, just historically, you know, we have not been given the opportunity to be in those spaces. So
Mm.
really opening up those spaces and making, others see that, hey, I can be in that space. I can even be in not just in that space, but I can even move higher than that, you know, and break those barriers. I think often we see this barrier in front of us and we're like, I cannot climb it, I cannot go through it, but can we go around it, right? So what can we do to get there to the other side?
Excellent, man. Well, your time here today has been extremely useful and helpful. I'm going to post this, if you don't mind. I'm going to post this on my YouTube page, put some caption to it and so forth, man. And I'm sure we'll get some hits. If people watch this, where can they follow you and just kind of follow your journey?
Yeah, they can go ahead and join my LinkedIn page just by finding my name, George Orduno. If they want to send out an email, they can also send out a personal email, so I can provide that. But yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to connect with me, that's what I want to do. I want to be a connection to people. I want to make sure that I can drive you to your goals and to your success.
That's what's up, man. Well, we appreciate you today, brother. This has been another edition of the Consolidate Experience Step Up to Leadership, Men of Color in Education and Leadership. Thank you so much, Mr. George Orduno. You are appreciated and always imparted. Fly low, avoid the radar, and no matter what happens when they come for the car, save the radio. Thank you so very much.